And now, please welcome Laimon Eglentals.
How's your week been this week? Anything exciting or fun or different that's happened for you? I had something really different that probably very few people can say have had happen to them this week. Believe me, this is true. I was actually chased by a dinosaur. Do you believe it? I have photos, I can prove it. And this wasn't just any old dinosaur. I was actually chased by a T-Rex, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, these big, massive dinosaurs that would come out and vicious killers that nothing will get in their way, the apex predators. Now, for you who are thinking, yes, dinosaurs are so far in the past, can you believe this? I'm not the only one. There's others that did have this happen to them. What happened? I'll give you the story. I went in a run. It was a couple of kilometres. The one I went in was a 5-kilometre race. And part of it is there was a track. You'd run around, down towards a beach, around a park, through a golf course. And where you did a U-turn, a 180-degree turn to come back around, it was around a dinosaur. This dinosaur is built in front of a golf club, and it is life-size. It's something like 9 metres tall. It is a huge dinosaur. It's obviously not a live one, but it has got hydraulics in it. It can move. It will roar. It'll have its big teeth come out. Its hands move. You can see it wink, and its ribs actually moving whether it's breathing. It is an amazing, massive thing. And for what I had to do was to run around. You actually run underneath its tail, then you come back around and you run away and escape from this dinosaur. Well, when I was in this run, the interesting thing about it is I had a friend and she was in the run as well. And she actually ran right around this dinosaur underneath its tail and came back out. And we got back to the finish line and asked and said, "Hey, how was the dinosaur? Did you see the dinosaur? What did you think of it?" She goes, "What dinosaur?" She missed it. She didn't actually see this huge dinosaur that was right in front of her. I can say that as you ran around this dinosaur, this T-Rex, if it was alive and if it wanted to, it could just come down and just go snap with its jaws. She would have been eaten. That's how close you got to this dinosaur. She missed it. She did not see a life-size, massive dinosaur near her. Now, as she described it later on, is when she has a goal, when she has a vision, when she has something she is focused on, everything else disappears. She won't notice that she's running into danger, that she won't notice that she's running into a huge big trap where there's a life-size dinosaur. She completely misses. She didn't see it at all. This dinosaur is quite interesting. You can go and climb up a nearby mountain, and as you go up, and it's a reasonably high mountain with a beautiful view of the coastline up on the Sunshine Coast, you can actually see this dinosaur as you look down from the top of the mountain. You can see it there. And there is another park, and there's even more dinosaurs, but they're a bit hidden away. But he's a nice dinosaur, I'll have to tell you about this T-Rex. You can go up to him, and we did at the end because we want to have a bit of a better look. You can press a button, and then he all comes to life. And his jaws come, and he growls, and he moves, and his tail starts wagging. His name is actually Jeff the dinosaur. As we become known, he's a nice dinosaur. He's a friendly dinosaur. He looks beautiful seeing this dinosaur, Jeff. That's not the only thing that happened to me last weekend, being chased by a dinosaur. Now, here's a bit of a confession, and for some of you, this is going to be completely a shock horror. I did something I have never done before in my life. Something you probably look at me and think, why on earth did you do that? I actually went in an eating competition. Can you believe this? I actually did. There was a proper competition with different people, okay? And in this competition, I thought, well, why not? It was after this race, and I will describe it here because, eating competition, like, hey, should you be doing that? Is that a bad thing to endorse? Well, it was how quick you could eat. I don't know if that's getting any better, but it was a watermelon, okay? And it was one slice, like an eighth of a watermelon slice. It wasn't that big, it wasn't that much. So I didn't gut to myself. It was just how quick I could eat this watermelon. So the competition was there, all laid out on the table, and there was 8 watermelon pieces. I was like, yep, I'm not going to miss out this because I've actually been consulted. I've been trained. I have actually gone out training with someone to know from some of the very best. So I was like, I better do this just to see if I'm absolutely hopeless, or if maybe I might be okay. I didn't want to be completely disgraced. So I got up there, and the competition was, there's a few of us, and we're eating, about to eat the watermelon. The rules were hands behind your back. And the other rule was you had to eat down on the watermelon, all the red until you got to the white flesh of the watermelon, and the first to eat it all won. They actually had a prize on offer. There's a couple other guys lined up. There was a carryover champion from last year, and I was standing right next to him. He was actually really good because he gave me a little bit of advice and say, make sure the watermelon stays up, because if it falls down on the table without hands, you're pretty much a goner. And as I came up there was also a whole bunch of young kids. So most of my competitors were probably about 10 years old. There's about 5 of these kids that race up. I was like, yeah, I'm in. Come on, I want to go in this competition. I lined up, ready, set, go. And it's like chomp, 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 chomp. It didn't take very long to get through a watermelon. And I know the rules. I've been briefed by those who know how you do eating competitions that, okay, eat as much as you can, but you have to actually swallow it. It's just not like how quick you can get something in your mouth. And a watermelon, 2 seconds you can do that. It's not that hard. But you had to swallow. So I was like, chomp, 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 stand up. And I saw the guy right beside me, and both of us were there, a carryover champion. I was like, okay, yep, I'm just trying to quickly swallow as much as I can. And I did that. I thought, I had a few friends in the crowd, and they actually thought I probably could have won. But what happened then, some of the judges that were watching there said to me and the other guy, it's like, no, you got a little bit of red on there. No, you go back, eat more. It's like, okay, chomp again, do it. And then in between that, I got beaten, and he got beaten by a young little kid there. I think the rules were changed. I think it was a little bit rigged so this young little kid could win. But I did go in an eating competition. According to those there, I wasn't too bad. So remember that, but it's only on a watermelon. But I think the rules changed. Now, this is a really interesting day I had. I wasn't just chased by a watermelon. I wasn't just... There's a slip, isn't it? I wasn't just chased by a giant dinosaur as I went in a watermelon eating competition. I almost didn't get to this event that I wanted to. I had a great day, but I almost didn't get there. Because what happened, when I went out, our car had a flat tyre. And a friend was coming over as well to come and get a lift with us. And as we were going over there, having a flat tyre, I was like, well, that's annoying, but you get a spare. It's not too bad. And you're going in there trying to jack the car up and take the tyre off. I did. I put the spare on. And as soon as I did, I noticed the spare was flat as well. It's like, great. 2 flat tyres in one morning. It was the valve, so, okay, it was nothing I could do. But our friend, she was very kindly, took us up to this event and back. So I had a really good day. But it was a really interesting day because all the time, it almost escaped. I didn't have all this thing. The good news is I went in this race. I got chased by a dinosaur, but I ran quickly enough away from it, so I'm still here alive to tell you. And I saw Jeff the T-Rex. I got to go in at my first eating competition, and I climbed a mountain, and even with a flat tyre, I made it the day. It worked out. There is some sad news, though, and this is really, really quite sad, that unfortunately this week, if you heard on the news, Jeff, the T-Rex, he actually is no more, very unfortunately. There was a fault, and early one morning, he burnt down. So, unfortunately, you won't be able to go and see the T-Rex, Jeff. It's sad. I was one of the last to see poor Jeff, who was so nice because he would just roar and growl and do this really good display for you. So it made me think, as we come through, we have plans, we have goals, we have things that we want to do, but sometimes things happen there. Sometimes we miss the journey completely. Like I almost missed it when I had a flat tyre there. I could have easily missed out and not being able to do any of this at all. Sometimes we have a goal or a plan, but it gets distracted. I was in this competition and then basically, it's like, no, it's not quite right, and you change it around and it's completely distracted from what you're trying to do. And the next time you might have an obstacle that comes in your way and it's there. It's like a big T-Rex dinosaur that's going to chomp you and not going to allow you to escape. So we have goals that can be diverted. Our goals can be sidetracked. Our goals can be stopped. Sometimes our goals can be changed and we never get to that destination where we want to get to. So what is our goal? What is our plan? All of us here, we can actually say that we want to do something. We have a plan, we have a goal. Like this week, I might want to finish off something around the house. I might want to have something finished at work. Next year, I might want to be traveling around the world, or I could be planning on getting a new house. I could be wanting to get a new car. We have so many different goals and plans that are in our own lives. And that's what's important, to have a good goal, to have a good plan, and then aim for it. A while ago, there was a book came out that was really, really popular. And it was a bit of a self-help book, and it was caught on the theme saying The Secret. And really the premise of The Secret was that have something that you want and you desire and have a good plan for it. Have a goal, focus on it. Really desire that which you're aiming for. And when you get that, if you really, really desire it and really, really want it, it'll come into your life. Now, that's an interesting thought. It's an interesting subject for a book. A very good, successful book there. It sells a lot of books if you want to be an author on that theme. But they did some interesting studies and found out what happens when you're aiming and you're looking for something. And the most interesting one I heard of was when you're driving a car, there's so many times that people have had accidents. They really shouldn't have had an accident. They'll go out and they'll find out there's someone who is driving out in a country road, there's nothing around there, big field, one post, they crash into it. Why on earth do you crash into this post when you've got a field to run off and it doesn't matter? They have people who are driving around a corner and they hit the road. They have people trying to move and miss an accident and they hit what they're trying to avoid. What's happening here is you're focusing on an object. The psychologists who are studying this is we see something and we're focusing on it. And as we focus on that, that is what we're looking at. That's what we get. And that's what we hit. So a little tip for you as you're driving a car and you want to avoid an accident, don't focus on what you're trying to hit. Focus instead on what you're trying to avoid. Focus on the gap. Focus on not your planned destination, what you're trying to get away from. If you have this goal, and a lot of people have a goal of doing something magnificent, something fantastic. A lot of people have had the goal of climbing to the highest point in the world, to go and climb up on the top of Mount Everest. And a very challenging goal to get 29,000 feet. And I remember hearing someone who's been up there and talking about his story and journey there. But one of the things is going up Mount Everest is a lot of people have focused on that goal and they've looked for that goal. And then at the same time, it's ended up killing them because they're aiming for the top. They're aiming for the destination. They don't notice the clouds, the storms, the change of conditions, how their body might be. That they say about 1 in 10 people who attempt climbing to Mount Everest don't come back. They've died. They've been left on the mountaintop because they didn't see the conditions around them, and that's it. One of the most famous examples of history of looking for a goal that's ultimately been very devastating is if we remember about our history, especially for some of us who know histories of other countries, is the first president of the United States of America, George Washington. Just after he was in office, he was out and he was out in the snow one day. And after that time, he was out virtually all day. He got an infection or got sick. He wasn't able to breathe. And from that, they sort of mysteriously, they say there's a few things it could have been, but he had real difficulty breathing. The doctors came in. And what happened that day in around about 1799 it was, they didn't have the medicine and the conditions what we'll do now, and they decided, okay, we're going to let his blood out, bloodletting. They took a bit of blood because if they take away that, maybe his infection won't be as strong and maybe he'll be able to pull through. Well, they tried it. And George Washington was very applicable. He liked this view and this approach of medicine. And he had some blood taken out. He was still feeling ill. He had some more blood taken out. He still had the infection, still had a problem. Had more taken out. In the end, they say he had about up to 40% of his blood taken out of his body. And he actually died. Probably most likely the thought is he died from all this bloodletting. They focused on trying to cure the symptom. They had the goal of getting rid of this virus and bug or whatever he had. It ended up killing him. They say what they would probably do now for him if he had the condition, they actually pump fluids into him, not take it out of him. They were so focused on that goal in that time of getting this infection out, it ended up killing the first president of the United States. One thing that our goals can be quite amazing. They can be quite lofty. They can be quite noble goals. For many of you probably don't know this, I actually have been in a space shuttle. In one of these things, they blast off into space. Now, I'm not an astronaut, and that's not my career, but it was really a fascinating thing. Most of you won't know much about this vehicle because it wasn't the common American ones, but this thing did actually fly, and it was called the Buran. The Buran is actually the Soviet Union's equivalent of the American space shuttle. And after the Soviet Union collapsed, for a while they had one on display in Sydney. You could go through the cockpit and the cabin of this space shuttle and you could go through it and have a look at it. It was quite fascinating doing it. The interesting thing on the Buran is it was made to reach to go to the stars, to go up into space, to be there, to have this lofty, noble goal of reaching into the heavens. They had thousands of engineers and staff, and the might of the Soviet Union's enterprise and industry was focused on making this space vessel. It was actually more technologically advanced than the American one at the time. It did have one launch where they launched it, went up and did an orbit of space, came back and it landed. The only thing it did did it all automatically, autonomously. There was no person in it. They were going to do a manned mission next, but at that time, the Soviet Union collapsed and it completely crumbled and they couldn't afford it. What happened there with the Buran is they had a goal. It was a great goal, a fantastic goal, a goal humans have had for centuries to reach up into the heavens, but it was a goal that happened at the wrong time. We had Biljana just talking before and sort of showing and illustrating of this ashes to ashes and dust to dust. Well, not long ago, a friend of mine that I've known for quite a long time, she was diagnosed with cancer. She had it throughout her body. She had an earlier cancer and this other one came back. And towards the end of her life, she decided she wanted to have a huge big list of what she wanted to do, because it came to a certain stage when she realised that it was going to be fatal. There wasn't going to be any hope of recovery. So she had this big bucket list of she wanted to do certain events and certain things and meet and do and experience certain things while she could. Unfortunately, she really didn't get much time to do much of those at all. And I remember going over and seeing her in a hospital not very far from here. And it was in September, and it was her last night. And that was it. She was there. She was groaning and struggling to breathe, and that was her last few hours. And then afterwards, that's it. It's ashes to ashes, dust to dust. She had dreams and hopes of her future. She was looking forward to so many different things that she would have loved to have done, but she ended up dying without being married or having kids and all these different things that she would have loved to have done. And it makes her think, what is our plan? What is our goal? What do we want to achieve in life? What are we hoping for? Are we hoping for a great career? Are we hoping for a fantastic degree? Are we hoping to have what some people would say, especially in America, a white picket fence, beautiful house, a nice sort of yard with the kids and that running around? Is that our dream? Is that our goal? Is our goal to have to travel right around the world, to always be happy, have a lot of fun and enjoyment in life, to experience everything that we can, to be on a continual high, to finish our university course? What is our goal? Maybe it's to find this knight in shining armour or a princess that comes through in your life, and that's the goal, to, if I only get married and find the right one, then everything's fantastic. We have so many different goals. But when we're looking at our goals, what is actually God's goal? What is God's plans for our own life? Because that can be vastly different than what we have for our own goals. Our spiritual goals. What's really most important? As I saw my friend who was dying in the hospital, is the most important thing is if she crossed off everything on her list of she got to travel here and meet this person and do this and go to this museum and try this out, is that the most thing that's going to be important when you look back over someone's life? Or is it really doing what God has for you and His will. And His will could be completely different from my bucket list of saying, I want to do this and own this and go here and whatever it is, or have a really great house and car or whatever it is. When we look and we think of God's plan for our lives and what He's got in store for us, it can be really different when we're looking from that eternal perspective and God's perspective. It doesn't mean that God wants us to have a life where there's no problems. I don't have to worry about a thing. I never have anything go wrong. Every day is fantastic. I don't have stress. Sounds really nice, actually. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's God's goal for our life. How about maybe to be rich and successful, and so I can do the things I'd love to do or buy the things I'd really like to own? It can be a good goal, but is it God's goal for us? Maybe to have a life where I reach to a lofty old age and I'm able to live through centuries and see so much of history. Is that a really great goal? I had some of my grandparents, great-grandparents have reached really old ages, over 100. It's fantastic. But in the end, is that the most significant thing that can happen for us? Really, in God's sight, it's like what we were saying before, the breadth of a hand. It's really, if you live for 5 years or 50 years or 500 years, in the aspect of eternity, they're all a snap of the finger. When I come through and I look at the different plans and different goals that we have or God has for us, I'll have to say, for me, I didn't plan on being born. Did any of us plan on being born? Did I plan on being born into the nation of Australia, which is actually quite a nice place and I really enjoy it here. It's got good climate, good weather. I didn't plan that. I just happened to be born in this time and this place. Did I happen to be born here in Australia and I'm living in 2015 right now, and I'm not living in, say, 500 years previous, where right now I wouldn't be in a building with electricity and lights and talking to people here with a microphone. I would be in a completely different environment. Did I plan that? Not at all. God's got different plans for us than what we have. I look and I think in the opportunities God's given. I never would have picked that I'm actually going to be a person who's doing some speaking and presenting in segments to radio that are going out into East Africa to people I've never visited or seen, or really I don't know much at all about some of these places. Yet God's had a plan and God's been able to use me for something I thought I'd never do or never really thought that that would be His calling for me in life. I don't know what's coming. 10 years ago, if I look back where I was, I never would have picked being here right now in the circumstances I'm in. Some have been fantastic, and sometimes you think, I could have handled not having to do that or try that out or go through that in life. But God has us in different places because His plans are really different to our own plans. I look through and I go in the Bible and I see times and stories of when someone's had a plan and a vision and a goal, but then God's had something else for them instead. One of the ones that I look and see at the start is the story of Jacob. And he went out and he went to a distant land, and really he hardly knew anyone except his uncle there. But he saw a girl that he fell in love with, and he said to his uncle there, I will work for you, Laimon, for 7 years to give hand in marriage for your daughter, Rachel. And he did that. But then when it came to the end of the bargain after 7 years of working for him, he was given Leah instead. He was given the wrong sister. I don't think he was too happy about that at the time. And he didn't have that plan. It was a plan like I had a plan where I was eating watermelon, and then the rules changed halfway through, and it completely diverted. Well, that happened for Jacob, and it wasn't just something that's very minor and trivial. It was like, hey, work an extra 7 years and your life's completely changed and everything's different because the rules had changed. And sometimes in our life, we do something and we work for something and then suddenly everything changes. It's like the whole situation's changed and we can't escape it. We can't change it. And we might not have anything that is in our control with getting a promotion at work, or maybe you're getting a resignation at work. It's not in your control and your effort. The rules of the game can change like they did for Jacob. And he had 7 years of wandering around and working, hard work, without the result that he wanted to. He had to work 14 years for 2 wives when he wanted 1 wife for 7 years. We have a look at another story of a plan that was being delayed. And Moses took the people, the children of Israel, out through the desert on what should have been a fairly short journey. They say it's, if you're walking distance, only a few weeks from Egypt to Israel if you wanted, even if you're taking a big group of people. But there was a plan and a goal to reach the promised land. And to reach the promised land, which should have been a fairly short-term goal, took 40 years. They were diverted in their goal and their plan for that long. They were going through. But as they were going through, they had to go through much learning and suffering and experiences where God was trying to teach them so many lessons. They had a goal and they did reach their goal, but it took so long for the children of Israel to get to their destination, to reach that goal, to be there and actually achieve what they had set out to do. And in the end, very few had actually managed to cross over the Jordan River to get into the promised land of Israel that they had been promised a generation before. So when we look at this, what is God's plan for us? What can we take out of it? What things can we have here and now that we can think about, God, what's your plan for my life? Well, I was looking up some texts, and this is one that probably a lot of you will know, but it's a really good thing of God speaking his plans for us. And it's in Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. And it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." When we're looking and we're struggling through what's God's plans for our life, where am I going to go, what's going to happen, God says, I'm going to give you a future. I'm going to give you hope. I have good plans for you. We don't always know what they are. I don't know what God's plans for me were 10 years ago to get me here. I didn't know that. He opened the doors for me there. But God's plans for you right now is a good plan. And it's a plan of hope and a vision for the future, a good future for you. It also can be something very mysterious for us. We don't always know what God's plans are. There's another text I'd like to read, and it's in Isaiah 55, verse 8. You've probably heard this verse before. It says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, rather, neither are your ways my ways, declared the Lord." So God's got a plan. He knows the future. He can see that. But what he knows and his picture and his vision for you is not your own. I might have a thought and a plan and a goal. It's like, I would love to travel to a tropical island and just lay back in these palm coves and coconuts and beautiful tranquil waters and just chill out in the sun and relax. Sounds really good. I actually like that. Maybe some of you will, and some of you think, no, they don't like the tropical islands. But a vision and a picture of paradise. But I might not really be that useful there. I might not be doing anything rather than just enjoying all the sunshine myself. I might have that plan. I might have that vision. But God's plan's different to my own. He knows the future. I don't know the future. I don't know what's going to happen in 10 minutes' time. God knows forever. He knows your plans throughout your life, and he can open up those opportunities, those doorways for a good hope and a good plan in your own life. And there's another text where Jesus says to pick up your cross and follow me. Our hope and our plan for our future isn't to have the easiest life or the most relaxing life or a life where it's just everything just cruises on through. Jesus says to take up a cross so that we'll follow him. He's given us a task. He's given us a journey. He's given us something to do. And it can require strenuous times. It can require times when, why am I doing this? I don't feel like doing this. It's a burden to do this. But it can be God's will and desire for you to go through those things so you can learn and experience, you can grow, and you can help others in that aspect in your life. There's a lot of happening in the news right now, and in Australia it's a very big news item, and it's been for the last few weeks. It's about some men over in a foreign nation, and it's getting a lot of attention by our politicians and prime ministers because these men have no hope. in a sense. They've been given a death decree. They've been told that your life is going to end, presumably within days, and there's no hope for your future. There's no hope for your family, for your career, anything you want. If you might realise, I'm talking about two people named Andrew Chan and Miriam Sukumran. And I'm sorry for pronunciations in that language. But what's happening is they're under a death decree for a trial about drugs in Indonesia from a few years back. And they've been sentenced to death. So you look for their lives, and they have really no hope at all, unless the president of the country changes the issuing and gives them a pardoning. But what's for them for next year? What's their hope for the future? What's their hope for seeing those they love again? What's their hope of, I'm sure their plans are not to, I want to go out and build this house and I want to have, a great career, or, their plans are just day by day. They really haven't got a future because of the sentence that's been given to them. And, it's a terrible ordeal for both of the men, for the other men that are involved in that case, for their families, for their friends, for all those that they love, to know and come what would be the end of the line, the end of the road, where all your hopes, all your dreams, all your plans and goals are completely put on hold. Well, there is actually a story very similar to that happened in the Bible, where someone who had everything they hoped and they planned and they dreamed, it came to an end. Someone who would really given just a few hours and then they would be dust as well in the ground. They were to be executed. They were to be killed. They weren't planning on how good prestige or how good their name will be in history. They weren't planning on how many kids or family or what was going to happen for all of them. It was the story of a thief who was given a death sentence by the Romans. And he was put there on a cross. And his life was, there's no getting back. You got nails and spikes in your hands and your arms and your feet. You weren't going anywhere. But at that time, when he was on the cross, he was next to Jesus. And as that thief was next to Jesus, all he could do, all he could hope or plan for in the future was to just say this, to tell Jesus about it, to tell Jesus, I want to be with you. I put my trust in you. I've got no hope for the future in any other sense, but he gave his hope, his future, his plans for his life to Jesus. And Jesus said to him, today you'll be with me in paradise. The thief there could steal a great vision, a great goal, a great plan, and it was given as a gift from God. And it was a goal that was fully from God, not of his own works. He couldn't do a thing, but he was there to receive paradise. How would it be if God told you, you're going to receive paradise? Paradise for eternity. Paradise that would change everything you know. His life wasn't a complete waste and a mess, that all his dreams and goals were gone and smashed to pieces and of no value. His life found its true hope, found its true purpose in what Jesus told him, that the goal has now changed. It's gone beyond this world. It's gone to a heavenly realm. It's gone to be with God and his kingdom in paradise. We don't have to work on all our goals and all our plans and know everything that's happening in our lives, because God has given us so many different things that he's promised to us. These are some of the ones I thought of that God tells us that he's promised to us as a gift, just for us, for being included in his family, being included as part of his kingdom. We are forgiven. Everything we've done, it's been wiped clean, it's been forgiven. How amazing is that? To not have to be burdened by your past and what you've done, to be forgiven by God. It can give you peace. God's giving you peace. You can have peace of heart and peace of mind, peace of your own conscience. God's given us the gift of love, that he loves us. He cares for us. He wants to know us so intimately that he cares and he's connected and he desires us to be in a relationship with him. How amazing is that experience when the God, the creator of the heavens, does that just for us? God has given us an acceptance, no matter what we've done, no matter where we've come from, No matter if we're on a death decree and about to be killed within hours, God still accepts us. He takes us part in his kingdom. We've been reconciled with him. We've been changed there that we are now in a relationship where it's restored to God, restored back from what once did separate us. And ultimately, he's given us a gift of eternity. No matter what happens in that breadth of our hand of we experience in life, throughout eternity, that's going to seem nothing compared to being in God in his kingdom. And we will be able to go and do things we never dreamed of. We'll probably be able to go and run in a world where there's dinosaurs that we can go and chase, and we're not going to be in fearful for our lives, but we can see them. We can see them flying through the air and swimming through the waters, and we can jump on their backs or something. Heaven is an amazing place where it's going to be beyond our comprehension and our expectation. We only know what happened on one little dot on one planet through one moment in history and time. When there's billions and billions or trillions of stars and planets out there, we are so insignificant. But in eternity, we've got everything. No one can promise you that on earth. Only God can promise that for us. And that's his goal for us, to be in heaven. When we look at our goals and our plans for the future, some of us might achieve some they're going to be diverted, they're going to be run around in circles, or they're going to be, like me, almost not being able to get there. But our destination and our goal isn't just what I can achieve in this life. It's something bigger. It's a destination in heaven, in eternity, in God's kingdom. And if our plan and our goal is to be there with Jesus for eternity, with him, what happens here is so inconsequential. So when we look at our goals and our plans, we can have the plans of a white picket fence and a nice little home and life, or we can have plans of a different goal, plans that we can walk the streets that are laid with gold in the kingdom of God.
To help you understand God's Word in a whole new way, go to goodnewsunlimited.com. You can sign up there to get your free devotional delivered to you each day. This program has been paid for by the partners and friends of Good News Unlimited. Word spreads fast.